Okay, so welcome to our smart session with Joseph from Investment New South Wales, looking at introducing the minimum viable product grant. I'd first like to acknowledge that I'm hosting this session on the traditional lands of the Gomeroi people. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which each of our presenters and participants are joining us from today. I recognise their continuing connection to these lands and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I also extend that respect to any Aboriginal people attending today. So as I said, we are on a tight time frame, so I'm going to throw over to Joseph, and I think Joseph will chat for about 20 minutes and then take some questions, correct?
Correct, that is correct.
Fantastic. Let's get going.
Take over. Thank you very much. Thanks, Alison. Thanks, Anna, for organizing this little get-together. And I'll just quickly touch base about myself. I've been working with the startup for the last 4 or 5 years, deeply engaged with the startup community across the Sydney Metro, and trying whatever I can to reach out broadly with New South Wales, working like incubate, like accelerate the new, etc. I've been started myself a couple of years ago, excited to exit and get myself a job and get my weekends back, and 9 to 5, and cannot complain about that anymore. So I do miss my startup days when I was running my own show, but now on the other side of the spectrum, enjoying as much as. So without further delays, I will dive straight to the minimum viable product. So what is the minimum viable product? Minimum viable product, it is a government incentive, New South Wales government incentive to support promising startup to develop the business around the project, to bring the project to the market and achieve first sale and achieve possibly scale. So it is paid in the 2 installments. 35% is paid after the grant is approved, and 65% of the approved grant is paid once the project is delivered and validated by one of my colleagues. So it's up to $25,000, capped on $25,000, or 50% of the project cost. So for example, if your project cost is calculated at $50,000, the max grants allowed would be $20,000. If is the grant, if is the project calculated $70,000, for example, the grant is capped on $25,000. Eligibility criteria. So the couple of steps in the grant process. So we got eligibility criteria, which has to be satisfied. All the boxes has to be ticked before you are moved to the next level, which is assessments. So the first one has to be addressed is the pre-revenue stages. So the company has to have 0 revenue. So ABN number you are applying under, it has to have 0 revenue, not the project itself. For example, if you establish business and you're trying to bring new line of product to the market, you are not eligible. So the program will support only businesses that have not reported any revenue. However, investors or seeds or whomever has injected in financials in your business not considered as revenue, just a point of sale for the goods or services would be considered as a revenue, and it has to be demonstrated to us. Sometimes we do ask financials, like a tax returns or sign letters from your accredited accountant confirming your pre-revenue status, and it is most likely for the businesses who's got ABN registered more than 2 years. That ABN has to be registered in New South Wales. So principal place of address and principal place of operation has to be New South Wales. For example, you cannot have business registered in Victoria or Queensland and operate in New South Wales. Both addresses has to be registered in New South Wales. 80% of the project cost has to be developed with New South Wales. 20% could be taken out New South Wales or out of Australia. Hold IP or right to commercialize. To hold IP, it's not imperative. It comes with a hefty price. So we are not insisting on that particular requirements to have. But however, right to commercialize, that's something that has to be communicated through us through the application, which means that you are not infringing on anyone else's right to commercialize the product, especially if the rights are assigned to you to the third parties. We have to see those communications quite through the application clearly for us to understand that is not going to pose any problem going forward. The duration of the project is 6 months from the application approved. However, the cost is accepted from the application received. Sometimes there are delays about 8 weeks from the applications received to the outcome. So we consider those two months as eligible cost when it comes to validation at the end to accept the costing. Proof of concept. So whichever stage you're going to argue that actually project is at the point of time you're applying developed is a beta or alpha. So we have to understand the basic functionality of the project you're trying to develop. So you should literally treat us like any venture capitals you'll be going to pitch your product for the funding. So we have to understand what the basic functionality of the platform. That level of proof of concept should be demonstrated to us. Has to be scalable. If it's the process or product or services only to improve your internal operations, it is not going to be eligible. It has to be scale involved to the presentation through application for us to understand how it's going to be applicable within the verticals you are building your product within or across the other sectors. Matched funding is dollar for dollar. So we have to see if the project cost is $50,000, we have to see your capability of $25,000 to support the project cost. So we will be asking bank statements, investors' letters, offset account with a clearly stated balance for us to understand your capability. Then lastly, you have to have a channel to market. Channel to market ideally is a business, established business, who would be collaborating with you in whichever levels of collaboration you can argue through the presentation that that particular business is going to help you to develop the product and enter the market. How we seize this, but ideally is piggyback on their success and enter the market and what's the conversion rate. So for example, if you are going to work in the space when the product is a business to customers, by all means, it's not no. However, you'll have to argue volume because we still have to understand the commercial opportunity. So if you, for example, having something that tested with dozens of customers, that's not a market, it's a support group. We have to see volumes in hundreds, at least hundreds of signed individuals who would be willing to support and potentially stay as a paying customer post MVP trial. I hope it makes sense. So I'm moving next stage. Once you satisfy all the criteria, eligibility criteria, we move you to the next step in the process, which is a panel assessment. Applications are sent to the panel assessments of 3 assessors assessed independently against our published criteria. And scores are related to the level of innovation, strength of the business model, industry benefits, and economic benefits. Some writing tips when it comes to writing application. I'll come to these slides at the end later on. So what is that we are trying to understand when it comes to business model? It's we're trying to understand what's the market size. So what's the portion of the market size that the industry you are venturing, it is going to be captured and what time? For example, if you are developing something in the medtech sectors, we have to understand ideally what is the total available market, what's the segments, and what's the verticals you are building through, and what's for the point of time you're ready to enter that market would take you, for example, in 24 months to capture that market. Then moving forward, what is going to be, I lost the lines, what is going to happen in the 48 months, when we're talking about adding another vertical in medtech or fintech, for whatever fact you're going to argue, what it is going to be, for example, that market share in 24 or 48 or 6 years. So that we have to understand in the strength of the business model, the potential or nominated channel or channels if you're introducing multiple sectors across the different sectors. Who are those people and how are they going to relate to your project? And what's the collaboration based on? Ideally, we would like to see some detailed letter of support, level of involvements, how those collaborations going to based on. So what is going to both parties are contributing, putting in, and what is going to be takes out once the project is completed. Then management, so we have to understand who are we dealing with. So you really have to literally sell yourself to us. You cannot come across risky. So we have to understand who is the brain behind the project, who is the developing, who is the marketing person, what's your industry networks, connections, possibly who would influence you or help you to grow to the business that you want to be in the times to come. So literally we have to see team rather than a single founder. By all means, there is lots of businesses that actually applied as a single founder, but we have to see the network around. So who's going to support you to grow through your business when it comes to development, when it comes to the business growth in general. The next one, when it comes to innovation, again, you really have to argue strong what is the level of innovation that your product is addressing in particular sector. So is the idea unique, completely innovative, and what is about? So explain to us how did you address that particular innovation, and how did you come up with a particular technology or technicality that actually support your argument? That's what's the innovation itself. You are created completely something new. We have to understand what is it that going against the existing tools in the markets that support and cater for the industries. So what's that sweet spot that you have discovered to explain to us? Is it technology that already exists in the market? You are just grabbing across the clouds and putting together innovative approach, innovative use to benefit the end users. Then how that technology at last is going to accelerate market adoption. What's that unique value propositions that you are guys going through? That particular segments of the innovation that will get you to the levels, to the markets that you like to be. Then it comes down to industry sectors, industry benefits, and scale. So for us to understand what is the product and how it's going to relate to the industry, it's very easy for us to understand how the market is identified and how that issue has been addressed from the early beginning, early starts off. Once we understand that pain point that you have discovered, it will be easy for us to understand what those industry benefits are associated with the pain point addressed to the application. Then what's that market gap that you have discovered in that particular sector that's the, for example, that or underserviced, or value chain is broken, or the supply chain it's broken. So that's the sweet gap that you have discovered in that particular sector for us to understand how it's addressed and what's the scale of that gap. So of course some gaps when we call them niche markets, but have really attached large dollar signs to it. Then how it's going to scale across the other sectors. So scalability has to be presented to us for understand. You're going to create the scales within the similar sector. For example, if you're again touching fintech or health tech, so going from general practice to research facilities, etc. All that particular concept of yours could be applied across the different sectors. So we have to understand what's the reasoning behind that applicability. Then we come down to economic benefits to New South Wales. So that's what we call here our return on investment, because we're not asking for any equity. We're not asking for any profit share whatsoever. But you really have to argue relevance to the taxpayers' money, why taxpayers' money should be introduced or injected in the private people businesses. So you have to argue job creation, export potential, or regional benefits. So whichever argument you have to put the strongest, bring forward, ideally, argue all three together. please do avoid generalizing economic benefits to New South Wales. We want specifics here. When it comes to jobs creation, we would like to see business growth potentially through hiring plan, time associated to introducing potential roles that will help you on your journey when it comes to development, when it comes to market entry and penetration and growth, when it comes to customer support. So always think about identifying the roles, quantifying those roles, and attaching the times. That in the first 2 years, you will need X roles in that particular sector. In the next 24 months, you will need X number of roles, and so on and so on, for us to understand opportunity and potential. When it comes to export potential, you really have to have that export sets of mind. So regardless how large the sector you are venturing in, what's the dollar sign attached, the Australian market is quite small. Eventually, you'll hit the wall. So you have to have explain to us how this idea of yours is going to reach export eventually. So we don't have to see the strategy from the day one, but has to be communicated to us that in the times to come, the application, once you get your product or services, once you get yourself within New South Wales, with Australia, that eventually you will get yourself outside of New South Wales. And again, we want to see some reasoning behind. So if you, for example, going to venture just an English-speaking country, would like to see what's going to happen, for example, taking your product to New Zealand, which is just on our doorstep, or going to further away to UK or North America, UK and USA and Canada. So we'd like to see what is the strategy, how to attract the consumers in those regions, what is the current tools that actually support in that particular sector to that particular industry. So some reasoning behind, and what's the expectations, 24 months, 48 months to get yourself there. And again, you all understand this is at this early stage based on assumptions, but we want some reasoning behind assumptions. Then it comes to regional benefits. Regional benefits could be argued in two ways. So directly solving some particular regional issues. So we have recently seen with the floods on or bushfires or droughts throughout the region of New South Wales. Are you venturing in a particular field that actually can support and solve or improve those kind of the situation and issues in regional New South Wales, or indirect benefits regional within regional New South Wales, which means enhancing economy in whichever way, providing jobs, providing existing businesses to grow to the next level through your particular doing. I hope this makes sense. So how it is all administrated? It is online process. So what you need to do is, if you, of course, interested, jump on our website profile, create your profile, answer the little quiz, and you can start your application. It takes up to 8 weeks. That's worst case scenario. Usually 4 to 6 weeks, we manage to get back with the outcomes to all applicants. Its application no needed to be conducted all in one go. You can literally pause and come back whenever you're free. Just make sure that actually you save your work, because if you just close application without the saving, you will lose all your work. Multiple attachments fields throughout the application. So in those attachments fields, just make sure you upload all your testimonials, all your arguments that you have to support your claims. So your communication between the third parties, with the channels to markets, testimonials and market validation, testimonials and the proof of concept, and understanding from end users and potential uptakes. So anything you think is relevant, you can upload and send us through your application to support the claim. And these are my details. So I'm open on one-on-one, and I always encourage people to please do without submitting application without talking to me or to any of my colleagues. So there is a general inquiry lines and email addresses, and this is my contacts directly. So I'm happy to meet you in half an hour chat or 1 hour chat and have a discussion how the MVP grants actually apply directly to your product. Because as you would understand, grant is structured in a way to address the industries across the sectors, not quite specifics. Some questions in application are very hard to understand to the particular industry. So it's instead of just presenting informations very high level, generalized, talk to us before you come to that particular level of submitting, just to make sure you're clear and had a clear understanding what is actually what would be the best possible way to address particular issues. And just let me go back to the slides I skipped, which is just some of the writing tips. So as I said, do not generalize anything. We want specifics. So when it comes to, for example, to understanding the markets and size, apart from just presenting the broad data, always try to relate that data to your particular reasoning, how you're going to correlate somewhere that point of time for that particular market. When it comes to, for example, to explaining how did you verify and identify the issue and verify the concept, always explain the steps which you have taken to explain the product or to understand the problem that's actually is in that particular sector. Always use specific. What have you done? Who have you spoken? What's the outcome was, and how is it presented to you? Was it to the social media? Was the survey? Was it going out physically and talking to people? Use the space wisely when it comes to addressing the questions. There is a word count to every single question that actually is about 100, 150 word counts. Make sure you use it. If you run out of space to address a question to best for us to understand, keep the Word document open. Whenever you feel short on a questionnaire, keep writing in a Word document. So whatever you felt short on explaining to the questions. Once you finish the application, polish your Word document and attach it to supporting documents. In a question application itself, you can lead us through. For example, when it comes to understanding the market size, you always say more information on the slides 15 in the supporting documents or business plan page 3, something like that, for us to find out the exact information that will actually support further and enhance your possibility to getting grants across. Always drop the names when it comes to dealing with people, especially if you're trying to explain someone's in a broader community that actually going to work with you closely to help you grow. Put the names, attach the names to the person. So we always go to LinkedIn and try to see how relevant they are to your business. Same with the businesses. If you have more than one channel to market, always make sure you introduce them all by relevance. The most likely case scenario will give you that entry to the market and the broader scale of those ones. Introduce the names, introduce the websites. Be precise. Again, details and specific. And on the product itself, make sure you explain everything what you're working in. Technology. We will understand what you guys trying to do. What is competitive landscape? What is the competitive advantage? What you're going against and how you're going to get there. Make sure you explain all those quite clearly in the application for us to understand the full volume of that and opportunity. And I'm pretty much done.
Thank you, Joseph.
To you. Thank you.
We had a question in the chat a little earlier on, just asking, does a company need to still be pre-revenue at the time the application is approved or only at the time the application is submitted?
At the time of submission.
Yeah.
Once you submit the application in the system and you receive the non-replied email, the application is received, very next day you can start and generating revenue.
Sure. And to what extent are you expecting to see job creation, particularly as it kind of relates to tech businesses, if there's a number of jobs you'd be expecting to see?
No expectation whatsoever. We just want some reasoning behind. For example, if you're going to tell me that's actually 2 team founders working the next 24 months, for example, to work on a product, introduce the product to the New South Wales and stabilize and scale. So in the 48 months, once you start taking your product outside of New South Wales, outside of Australia, I would like to see some job growth. I would like to see some reasoning behind, some tech support, some customer support, marketing, whichever way you're going. There is no textbook, there is no number, there is no minimum. Just some reasoning behind. You're gonna, just for the sake of argument, you're not going to tell me that you're gonna create 24 jobs in the next 2 years without some reasonable support to support your claim. Again, there is no textbook, there is no expectation from now and how much we would like to see.
Yeah, sure. We're getting some questions through on the chat. I'll keep reading them out, but if anyone wants to ask Joseph direct, then please feel free to pop your hand up. So from Emily McGregor, what level of prototype is required, Joseph? Again,
not textbook, so anything from framework for us to understand functionality. You have to pass that stage of research. Has to be past the research stage, has to be past the ideation stage, has to have some basic functionality for us to understand how it's going to be presented to the end users. So is it alpha, is it beta stage, in whichever you're going to put your argument, we will accept that as a level of information.
And a good question from Steve. If you think you have a couple of investors interested, do their investment count towards the budgets and costs?
As a dollar sign, yes, but not as an in-kind contribution.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm saying yes. Steve, you're nodding. Did anybody else have a question? I did see a couple of people unmute themselves. Please feel free. Yeah, Paolo?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi, Paolo.
Sorry for not showing up in the video. Just curious about Josip, are you part of the Business Connect system so we can sort of book a consultation with you? How does it work?
You can reach out to me through emails. My emails, which I had on the last slides, or Alison can share my contacts with you, and I'm happy to set up half an hour or 1 hour meeting with you, Paolo, whenever you're available. So we can do phone, we can do Zoom, whatever works for you.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So, and I have a question about the proof of concept. So before you said something like that you are gonna sort of test the product, as in, I guess you wanna sort of engage with it. So is it important for you to have something physical to work with, or you are more interested in having, say, surveys or feedback from customers where they give us a feedback whether they're going to use it or not?
Correct. That's correct. So when it comes for us testing the product, not necessarily. We just have to understand through application what's level of the development you are currently at, point of entry to the application program. So there has to be some basic functionality of the concept for us to understand how it's going to benefit end users. The best way to argue that it's, as you said, through your channel to market or potential customers. Because if you're coming to any venture capitalist to pitch for the funding, you will have to some basic functionality for them to understand what they're going to invest money for. The same with us. So how would be the best? Talking to potential channels and trying for them to understand and feed you with the feedbacks. Who would you later on present to us as a testimonials, as your argument support?
Okay.
Make sense?
So yeah. I'm just more. So you answered my question. I was more interested in say. So we actually need to for you to test the product yourself, or you're more interested in the customers to have tested it?
Customers.
All right. So we won't have to sort of do a demo or anything like that.
Not to us.
All right. I understand. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Thank you.
Just another question from Steve, and Steve, apologies if I don't get this right. So if the product actually ties in with the purpose of a New South Wales government department, any chance of that department buying you out? Is that what you're saying, Steve? That'd be ideal, wouldn't it?
That would be a very strategic collaboration. I believe so. Bring it on.
Joseph, I think, you know, for anyone, you know, for any startup, I just wanted to kind of touch back on your slide about sector benefits. You know, and for any startup looking at whether it's a tech solution that they want to apply for the MVP or something totally different. I mean, just looking at those sector benefits is a great reminder to keep bringing your business back to, you know, what's the market, who are you targeting, who are your audience. You know, I think that's a fantastic slide.
That's quite very important for us to understand that actually it's not something that is just born out of frustration. So we have to understand that you have actually worked closely with the industry sector, that you actually are not necessarily expert, but the way you are connected to that particular sector to understand that, again, why is the reasoning that you have put into your application, it is what it is. We have to understand who have you spoken with. So, and on and on. I don't want to repeat myself, but yeah, that's quite important for you to understand before you come to us. So how we see the project MVP grant works, it's actually, you had idea, so that something is broken again. So then you have to validate those hypotheses through your channel to market. So channel to market is ideally is the business. So when you have those hypotheses validated to them, so you come to us for the funding. So we kick in $25,000 of the $50 project cost, help you to develop the basic functionality, which will you take to market to achieve first sale. Once you achieve first sale, first dollars will give you enough leverage to go to talk to big guns in the industry who will support you with the further growth, like a venture capitalist or anyone else who has millions to invest in a particular industry if there is a mutual interest. So we call this through us is like the de-risking of the project. Not necessarily it is going to benefit you at this early stage of the development, but will definitely give you leverage to get yourself to the next levels of sourcing the investments or capital to help you grow.
All right. Unless anyone had any other questions, we are, oh, Jeannie Marie.
Hi, Josip. I'll just
Hello.
ask my question. Thank you so much. That's really, really useful information. I just wanted to dig a little bit more into your discussion around around what testing needs to be done. How far developed do you need the product to be before applying for the grant? Is it sufficient that you've developed wireframes? Do you need to actually have a functional prototype? What are you expecting to see?
Wireframes will be just enough for us to understand it's actually functionality.
Okay.
You don't have to go to the further fine tunings. So that's basic wireframes for us would be just enough to understand the technology level you're currently at while working on a product.
Okay. And would images of those wireframes be included in the application?
Yes,
Is that what you normally
ideally.
Okay.
Ideally. So if it's just a screen grabs to be uploaded and presented to us, or if you're talking about websites, which is some basic functionality, websites to be sent to us to understand if you're talking about platform. So for example, to understand what is going to be eventually come down when the project is a market fit or customers fit. So at that point of time, you have to understand those basic functionality. Wireframes are just good enough.
And so then in terms of the, you talked about it having been tested by end users. So to what extent, and given if it's just wireframe development at that stage, or what level of sort of testing or validation then would you be expecting to see?
Understanding what would be a potential commercial opportunity post-successful MVP trial, because that functionality would be enough for you to go and explain to your target audience what's going to benefit them going forward. So their input and insights will be most likely presented to us for to understand the opportunity. So if you have, for example, in that particular vertical, one consumer that's actually willing to collaborate with you and to offer the sake of the feedback and testing, by all means. If you can introduce more than one, by all means. Across the sector, even better for us to see the full opportunity. So the level of technology for them to understand the functionality, that will benefit them post MVP trial.
Okay, that makes good sense. Thank
That's
you.
what we'd like to see. Yeah. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Welcome. Come on, people. Anyone else?
Albert?
Hello. How are you guys?
Hello.
Thanks for this. I think it's been very helpful. I have a question with well, actually with the proof of concept. Just to finish on that, we're talking about that wireframes. So as I understand, then just having a prototype with wireframes, it's enough. Do we need as well like to have like technical documentation? Like let's say.
Not at this stage of the application that you have technical documentation. There is a question through the application which is relevant to the innovation itself. So it's what is the innovation, what's the technology, what's the innovative use of the existing technology, and that's how the technology is going to accelerate market adoption. In those three questions, you can argue level of technology or the technology that you are using to support your product. But we don't have to see any documents when it comes to papers at that stage. So for example, if you are dealing with the third parties, which means you are not developing project in-house, you outsource development. We don't have to see even quotes. You don't have to send us the quotes, nothing.
Right. And thank you. And then with the IP rights, you said that we don't need to get like an IP, the IP itself, but we need to.
You don't have to.
We need to demonstrate that we are not having any issues with any other company or infringing or something. How do we do this?
It's just through application, the questions. It's a question that you have a right to commercialize or on IP. So why ticking those boxes you are legally obliged to actually present information and truthfully support that claim. So if, for example, 5 years from now, if you approve and someone from UK and USA says that project is actually not yours, you have to be able to stand in a house of law and defend. So we cannot be implicated.
Right. Okay. So we don't need to show any documentation on it.
No.
Just say that we are sure.
If you have IP, by all means, it's for your benefit. You can upload the documents of registration, which will again support your claim. But it's very hard to get IP against the softwares.
Yeah.
So we having IPs against the devices, so particular development when it comes to coding, etc. But when it comes to platform, it's very hard. I mean, you can have trademark, but not the IP.
Okay. And then with the testimonials or supporters, is there any number that we need? Like, can we have like 5 supporters, 5 testimonials, or do we need hundreds?
More in this case, the more the better, more the merrier. So if you can have, if you're talking business to business, it's good to have good, solid one. If you have more than one, again, you can always present them by the relevance, which is going to be most like a scenario for you to enter the market 6 months after the project is developed. Then you can scale them down by relevance. If it's business to customers, in that case, we really need to see the volume. So if you're having just like a 5 single users to support a claim, it's not the market, it's a support group. We have to see those in hundreds. If it's going to, for example, Instagram or any other social media, we have to see the numbers that you have actually spoken to, who would eventually become your paying customers. Make sense?
Okay, so if it's like, let's say it's a business that is business to business and to customer, like both at the same time, you're saying that we will need like 100 supporters of customers and then...
No. One business, but we have to see what translates to. For example, if you're having one business, who are you collaborating to, and your product is going to address business to customers, we have to see what it translates to, what is going to be conversion. For example, if you're working with someone to sell something, physical product to the market. So what is going to be potential uptake from their end is going to be 1, 5, or 50%. So potentially will be buying your product. So one business in that case.
Okay.
Make sense, Albert? Yeah.
Everyone's still online, so I'm assuming that Albert's questions are useful to all, which is great. I might just we are ticking along in time, so I might just pop up some details about our organization, and you can either contact me if you would like some contacts for Josip, or just bringing up my slide. I'll bring those up in a minute. You can either contact me if you'd like to follow up on the contact details for Joseph, or you can wait until a recording, which will be up on our YouTube channel shortly. So thank you so much for your time, Joseph. That's